So good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. I think for the interest of time, we had given people about two to 3 minutes. So I think we should start, and with concurrence, Mr. Robert.
Yes, we can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Robert. My name is William Takuka. I am the member of Kajiado County Alcoholic Drinks Control Board. And I also happen to work regionally as a representative to the UN with the Movement International. And I have before worked with SCAD for quite a number of years, dealing with the issues of young people. And so the issues of parenting is one of the issues that we understand and we were addressing as a preventive measure to alcohol and drugs. So today I will be, I don't know whether it's chairing or facilitating this forum today. And we are happy that our presenter is Mr. Robert Olweni. He's the regional manager, South region. The South region for the region, for those who might want to know, comprises of 7 counties, and that's Nakuru, Kajiado, Narok, Bomet, Kericho, Laikipia, and Samburu. Basically, the presentation today, or this forum today, and thank you all for attending, is the presentation will take about 40 minutes, actually not more than 40 minutes. Then we will have 20 minutes for questions and answers. So that means that your questions will be addressed towards the end. And the modalities that you raise your hand when that time for questions opens, or you can go ahead as early enough and write in the chat box. You can write your question, we will note it, and the presenter or our colleagues from NACADA will address it towards the end. So those are 2 options that will be available for you to ask questions as well as contribute any thing that you may want. So we feel that this meeting should not take more than an hour. It is now 11:06. So I think without wastage of time, I would like to invite Mr. Robert Olweni, but before that, possibly Susan Maua would like to introduce yourself. I think one of our managers. Okay, as we're waiting for her to unmute to introduce herself. But good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I would like to welcome everyone to this meeting, and our director is here, so I will give her the opportunity to make opening remarks before you can carry on. So welcome, director.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Mr. Ntakuka. Thank you, Robert, and thank you to the participants for taking time to join us today. We've been having these progressive meetings, webinars that have been very impactful to different families. Today, we are hoping to learn a lot. Robert, we are all here paying attention, and we believe that at the end of it, we'll have something to report that today was a different day. So for parents, have an open mind, ask your questions. We are here to support as much as possible and ensure you carry something that you can share with others. Even as we are planning for IDADA, the International Day Against Drug Abuse, we're also welcoming you to join us during that celebration. For now, we are sitting back and we hope to enjoy. Thank you so much. Over to you, William.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Sorry, I didn't see you joining in. Robert, kindly carry on from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, William. Thank you, Director, and everyone who has joined. It's such a great pleasure to be able to have this opportunity to be able to share drug use prevention through positive parenting. I think I've been introduced, and I will try and share my screen. Immediately you are able to see it, you'll be able to let me know kindly. Can you see my screen? Hello?
We don't know what you wanted to share, but you can see, yes, we can see a screen, a Zoom United. I don't know whether that's what you want to share.
No, not exactly.
Okay.
Just a second. I am sharing the presentation. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, positive, we can see.
Okay, thank you so much. I have muted my video because the internet connection here is not very, very stable. So this session basically is one amongst many that as NACADA we've been able to run, I think over 9 weeks or so. So today, my presentation is going to sort of, do a summary of what we've been learning. So in the 40 minutes, I'll take you through an introduction. Then I'll share a little bit about what is the alcohol and drug abuse situation in the country? What are some of the statistics that we have? We'll also look at why do youths use drugs? Then for parents, importantly, we'll be able to share what are some of the early warning signs that we can be able to observe in our children that can actually tell us whether they've started getting into alcohol and drug abuse. I've highlighted communication because a lot of my emphasis is going to be, especially because a lot of questions that have been coming from parents is, how do I speak to my children about drugs? So I'll be able to give us a few tips on that. And of course, also tell us how we can also contribute in telling our children and protecting them against underage drinking. I'll also spend a little bit more time talking about parental monitoring, because as you can be able to see from what we've been hearing on the news, what is happening generally among the youth in terms of alcohol and drug abuse, we feel that if we can strengthen on parental monitoring, then we'll actually help our kids a lot. And then finally, I'll give you some 3 key components of positive parenting. I'll start by a quote by one of our renowned speakers, actually in issues of parenting. It's called Dr. Stanley McColway. In his book, Raising Future Parents, he says, you may choose who to marry. You may choose when to marry. You may choose when to have children. You may even choose how many children to have. But once you have those children, you cannot choose when to raise them. Your choices are gone. If you do not raise them, they will still grow. But you may not like what you get. So I know as parents, when we reflect on this particular saying, I think many of us will agree that raising our children is very, very, very critical. As a country, we find ourselves in a lot of parenting crisis. And although all of us, sometimes had a desire to become parents, you realize that sometimes it's extremely demanding. Indeed, many of us sometimes come to parenting without any preparation. Here we have our kids. Sometimes, you might have even gone through workshops, but once you have those children, sometimes, like they say in Kiswahili, kuzaa sio kazi, kazi ni kulea. And the Bible, of course, also says, like, train your child on the way they should go, and when they grow old, they will not depart from it. So as parents, sometimes we find in practicality of raising kids finds us with a lot of unpreparation. And sometimes when you look at the society, sometimes we see how children have gone wayward. So many parents, of course, struggle with day-to-day demands, like, of course, trying to, bring food on the table, trying to find money for school fees. So sometimes it can be exhausting. I mean, we have to fight through the jams. Sometimes our children, have to go to boarding. So as parents, it's not an easy task, and we realize that it is challenging. But let us realize that as parents, we have a very, very critical role in terms of nurturing and keeping our children safe and healthy, and of course, ensuring that they grow into responsible adults. So that is a role that we cannot run away from. So another thing is, of course, when these children grow and they become teenagers, you find that that is the age, as I'm going to show you later on, is when they initiate into drug use. So sometimes it becomes quite challenging. So researchers in NIDA and NACADA have actually found out that youth of parents who talk to their kids about dangers of substance use early are often 50% likely, less likely to use drugs. So when we are involved as parents, as guardians, because parents could be, many of us, maybe it's a complete family, many sometimes it's a single parent, maybe a single dad or a single mom, others sometimes are caregivers, but it is important to realize that as a parent, when you start engaging in discussion with children early, then you're protecting them. So why are we talking about positive parenting? Parenting is actually one of the most important public health issues that you're facing as a society today. In fact, it is one of the largest variables that has been implicated in terms of, childhood illnesses, accidents, the teenage pregnancies that we see, the substance misuse, truancy, disruption, and all these other negative things that we see among our youth. So as parents, we play a very potential role in ensuring that we prevent our children from the health problems that come from engaging in drugs. So when we actually are close with our children, when we take care of them with warmth, when we listen to them, then we are actually preventing them from getting into substance abuse. So that is why we are seeing that it is one of the most critical roles that we need to engage. So it means taking that approach where we are sensitive to the children's individual needs. We are addressing their challenges when they arise much, much early, and we are finding solutions on how to actually protect them. I was just doing a collection of some of the news that have been coming, because this particular session, I know parenting is broad, but this particular session, we are looking at the contribution of parenting and as to whether it's going to be a risk or a protective factor for our children. And sometimes what we see from the news is quite discouraging. I mean, we've had in the news of children who have been arrested, engaging in drugs in Kangemi, in Karachuonyo, and in many other places. And as NACADA, it is something that has concerned us. And of course, most of the things that we do are actually driven by data, by looking at what is the situation. So in our research, of course, we can be able to see that nationally, in 2017, you see almost 12.2% of Kenyans are actually using alcohol. That is a significant number. I mean, over 2.1 million. Over 2.1 million as a result of using alcohol end up actually developing disorders. Tobacco use is also very, very much rampant, and you can be able to see the disorders in terms of numbers. People are having a problem with that. But again, much as we did a survey nationally, we also did it targeting the secondary schools and also primary schools. And you can be able to see among secondary school students, almost 23.4% have actually ever used alcohol, and currently about 3.8 are using alcohol. Cigarette, again, 2.6. So that is actually usually something that tells us that we need to actually intervene. And it informed the primary school, survey that was conducted in 2018, that even showed that the problem starts much, much earlier. And it's even worse. When you look at the statistics of the primary, you see alcohol alone, 7.2% of our children have already started engaging in alcohol. 6.0% are actually already smoking. And we know the effects that come with this. So that's why, you know, we need to start early. And when you look at when they actually initiate this use, you see that most of it happened during school holidays. And because of the pandemic, we see that most of our children were actually even at home. So at 48.5%, many of them abuse drugs during school holidays, on their way home, and during weekends. When we looked again at the source of these drugs, when you look at the statistics, again, you can be able to see from home almost 30%, local brews 19%, and from relatives. And shockingly, again, from parents. So when we look at all these statistics, what is it telling us? I mean, it's shocking that even in terms of risk factor, family is becoming key to it. Much as it is the primary socialization agent, it has become a risk factor, because you can be able to see, again, children living with a single parent who is a father, that's a risk factor. Having a high amount of pocket money, again, that's another risk factor. Having a family member who is actually using, or a friend, is another risk factor. So that's why parenting becomes very, very critical, and that's why we are going to talk about it. So as parents, I want to tell us that why is substance use prevention important? It is important this way. And actually, the primary objective of drug prevention, first of all, is to help people, and particularly young people, because if we don't take care of the young people, then we'll be dealing with a greater problem later on. So what we want to see is that they avoid. And when I talk about avoid, they actually completely abstain from substance use, because the earlier you initiate into drug use, actually when children below 15 years begin experimenting with alcohol, they are likely actually to depend into substance use disorder before they attain age 20, 21. So it becomes quite challenging for them. So we need to avoid and, of course, delay the initiation of drug use. And for those who have already started, then we avoid that they develop disorders, because they will develop disorders when they start substance use early. So besides that, the aim is not so much just about drug prevention, because when we prevent the drugs, what we are doing is we are ensuring that we have healthy children who develop well and are able to realize their potential. They are able to go to school, they are able to function well, and they are able to become contributing members of the society. So it is much broader than just avoiding, delaying, and for those who have already started, ensuring that they don't continue and therefore become addicted. So effective drug prevention contributes a lot in terms of positive engagement of children, youths, and adults, in terms of working with their families, schools, workplace, and the community. So another thing that I'll just briefly talk about is the parenting styles, because again, research has actually shown that the way we parent, and sometimes some of us end up parenting the way we are parented, can actually sometimes become a risk factor, especially say if you are an authoritarian, a dictator, a parent who place a lot of strict and firm control, a parent who doesn't listen to the child, a parent who uses a lot of punishment as opposed to discipline, where what you want from the child is obedience. They do it because you have said so. And if they don't do it, you punish them strictly. So when your focus so much is on this, on obedience, you'll find that the impact is that eventually you lose the ability to influence the child because they are not engaged in terms of even the rules, in terms of discussing, in terms of telling them what they need to do and what you want out of them, so that there is actually reasoning. And eventually, the kids who are brought up this way end up becoming rebellious. Some of them become aggressive. Some of them, become indecisive. They're insecure. They cannot be able to say things for themselves because at home, it is a war zone. So this kind of parenting has a high chance of the child getting into drug abuse. The kind of parenting that, of course, I've called positive or just right is the authoritative type of parenting, where you encourage the child to be independent, but you still place a lot of limit and controls in terms of their action because you are still their parent. So you support them to develop. You are able to reason with them. You're able to come up with rules, but eventually you're the one who makes the decision because you set the limits, you set the expectations, very, very clear expectations at that. Because, setting a clear expectation is this. Like when you tell your child exactly what you want them to do, is much more effective than telling them what not to do. Like, for example, if you want your child to do something, you don't tell them, don't make a mess. Or you don't just tell them, I want you to be good. But you actually go ahead and actually tell them exactly what you want them. Like you give clear instruction. I want you to make your room. I want you to clear your toys and put them in a particular place. I want you to avoid getting into drugs, and of course, if you smoke, then there'll be a consequence. And actually you follow through that. So this kind of parenting, the child are actually also allowed to make decisions. They're allowed to actually contribute in coming up with some of the things that the rules that you're developing in the house. So when a child is actually involved, you realize that we have children who are happy, who have good self-esteem, and those who have good self-esteem, it's very difficult for them to be dragged through peer pressure into substance use. Of course, the other parenting style is the permissive, where, anything goes. The child is allowed to do anything that they want. Whereas as a parent, there are no rules, there are no boundaries. And sometimes when even the child throws tantrums, there are no consequence to that. So this kind of parenting, again, it becomes a risk, because as a parent, you only focus, on being their parent, on just, making them happy. But when there are no boundaries, then they'll test the limits. They'll actually try to do things that might actually put them into risk, and they might be predisposed to alcohol and drug abuse quite early in life. So we need to watch out against that, because that, again, brings about high chance of substance use. Again, another parenting is neglectful, where, you just provide basic needs, but you don't care where the kids are. And the children raised in this kind of environment sometimes learn to be independent, sometimes learn to experiment and do things that might actually make them become delinquent, and actually even test with using drugs, because there's no one to listen to them, no one to talk to them. You are always away. In fact, they usually say the children need presence, being there, rather than presence, the gifts. And of course, another parenting style is the overprotective style of parenting, where you want to shield the child from harsh realities of life. Instead of using, rules and threats, the overprotective parents usually present themselves as allies, as friends of these kids. Oh, don't do this. Oh, don't go here. I mean, oh, no, it's okay. You know, you are always rescuing the child. You know, you're told your child was caught smoking. You're like, no, my child can't do that. You know, you are the one who is very, very angry. You know, even at teachers sometimes when they tell you about things that the child is doing. So the focus here is usually, you know, being a child's friend, like I said, and you're using, instead of using the rules and consequences of the behavior, you want to protect and shield the child. The impact is that the child will be inexperienced, they will panic, because the parent always comes to the rescue. We've had cases where, I mean, the child was caught with bang, and the parent goes, bribes the police, and the child comes out of it. So this kind of parenting, again, sometimes exposes a child to get into substance abuse. As a parent, what should you do? What should you do? Recognize that your parenting style sometimes can make your child more or less vulnerable to problems and use of alcohol. So as a parent, you need to critically look at yourself and ensure that you avoid all these extremes and become a positive parent, you know, an authoritative parent, where, I mean, you provide limits, you give clear rules and boundaries, and you also encourage your child to be independent, and you'll have very good results at the end. So I want to tell you that as parents, realize that, you know, you have very close relationships, strong bond between you and your child that is based on you listening to them first and showing a lot of care to them. Know that this kind of warmth and care will actually eventually be protecting your child. And of course, spend even small amounts of time each day, you know, maybe 10 minutes or so with your children, finding out where, how their day was, what are their anxieties, what are their fears, you know. That kind of, you know, closeness helps the children become better. And I want to encourage you also and tell you that as a parent, you have the most influence in helping your child grow happy and learn to cope with difficult situations. We might say that, oh, my child doesn't listen to me, my child, you know, is not my friend and all that. But if you're a positive role model, know that you still have a great influence. The child will always still come to you. And again, in very difficult situations, a strong bond that you develop with your child will mean that your child will not get into risky situations. So I want to tell us that many young people will be exposed to drugs and alcohol, as you have seen in the statistics that have been provided. But know that as a parent and a caregiver, you have a role to actually empower your child in terms of the choices that they make in life and eventually not getting into drugs. So there are a myriad of reasons why children take drugs. It could be other people, you know. Children see a lot of people consuming various substances, and therefore they also want to try and experiment. I mean, these drugs are available, they are affordable, they are accessible. Sometimes, you know, as parents, people have positive attitudes towards these drugs, and therefore you find that the child also ends up taking. They see their friends who urge them to drink, and they also get to experiment with these drugs. Again, we are living in a situation of popular media where the music that children listen to usually makes alcohol seems fun. I mean, when you look at the music videos which young people and teenagers like, they promote a lot of drug use and, you know, tattoos and many other things. Movies that they go to, you see that there's favorable attitude towards drugs. And again, some want to escape from self-medication. So when teens sometimes find that they are stressed, they are unhappy, then the outlet that they actually find is actually drugs. And prescription drugs is emerging as one of the drugs that, you know, is becoming popular with young people. So we need to watch out on that. Of course, rebellion could be another reason, boredom, and that instant need to gratify themselves is usually very, very strong amongst young people. And of course, there's a lot of misinformation regarding drugs, where people are saying, oh, everyone is using, but the truth is not everyone is using it. Like, for example, the fact that 7.2% of primary school students were seen to be taking alcohol doesn't mean that everyone is not using. I mean, it doesn't mean that everyone is using, sorry, because now that means over 90% are not using. So we can use that strength to actually also tell them that by the fact that you see others are using doesn't mean that everyone else is using. So another thing that maybe we need to watch out as parents, and some of the red flags that when we see amongst our young people, our children, that we should be concerned. They could be psychological, they could be social, they could be educational. So there are many. And of course, you can always get some of this information from our website. But when you see your children, you know, have changes in friends, secretive about friends. You don't even know their friends. You don't know even where they are going. You know, that should actually concern us. Again, when there is a change in attitude, you know, sometimes becoming irritable and all that, becoming withdrawn, when they drop in school attendance, their grades are falling, that is something that as parents, you should not take lightly and you should begin to interrogate. So as I conclude, I want to talk about communication because it's very critical. I'd say that I want to spend a bit time on how we can be able to speak to our children regarding drugs. So good communication between a parent and a child is usually the foundation of a very strong relationship. So when we develop good communication skills as parents, we can be able to, one, catch problems early. In case there are problems developing, you can be able to catch them early. And of course, we can support positive behavior. And here is where I say, like, as parents, you also need to praise our children, not just look at the mistakes that they've done, but if they've actually done something good, reinforce that kind of behavior. But again, also stay aware of what is happening in their circles. So the current position, of course, right now, how we usually communicate with our children, most of us parents, we talk at them. We don't listen to our children. Sometimes there's a lot of distracted listening where we just give them a phone so that they play with. We perhaps are talking when the TV is on, you know, where there's a lot of no, don't. So this sometimes can be counterproductive. So what you should do as a parent is you must take active steps to initiate some of the conversations with our children. You can suggest to the child that you'd like to talk to him or her. And of course, don't expect that they will agree. Sometimes they might actually refuse. But of course, you continue to entice them. And of course, choose the time that would actually be most convenient both for you and even for your child. When you're discussing very critical and important things, please ensure that there is unfettered attention. I mean, 100% attention. If it's putting off the TV, if it's reading a newspaper or a task, just put it out so that you give complete attention to this child. And of course, listen to them first with a lot of warmth and care. Some of the key skills that you can use is questioning, where the kind of information, by the way, that in case you want to talk to your child, it will actually depend mostly on how you're actually going to ask that particular question. So 3 things: you need to show interest and concern, and don't blame and accuse them. So you can, for example, say that instead of, you know, coming at them like, how could you get yourself into such a situation? You can perhaps, you know, say, man, my child, man, that sounds like a difficult situation. Were you confused? I mean, what was happening? So that the child, you know, at least feels that they're cared for and they can easily come out and tell you the challenge that they are going through. And of course, you can also use thought-provoking questions that can be asked in a very non-threatening way. Like you can ask, and you can, talk to them and ask, by the way, Mary, do you know any children who drink or smoke? How has it affected them, for example? Have you ever been offered, alcohol by someone you know? What do you think happened? When you talk to children in this non-threatening way, you'll be surprised that they can give you so much information. And of course, encourage a lot of problem solving and thinking skills, where instead of saying, what did you think was going to happen, by the way? You're so dumb. You can say, what do you think would have been better way to handle that, so that you give them an opportunity to even tell you more and more. And of course, seek discussion, do not lecture them. Like you can share your own experience and opinions of how you've changed over the years. But of course, you need to be careful, even as you're sharing this information, so that it is not something that is promoting, experimenting and using of these drugs. And of course, you can keep distinctions between what are facts and what are opinions. Like, for example, you can say, my opinion about this particular situation is this and this, based on some facts and experiences, and also based on observation, because as a parent, you've been able to see many other things that have happened. So you are at a better position to be able to guide and support them. And then, of course, you can, like what we had said earlier, you can listen and try to understand without being, defensive or accusing. Ask what they think, what they feel, because when you do that, they are likely to come out and, give you information and, be in a position where they can be able to seek that help and get support. Of course, avoid debates. Teenagers, by the way, they usually defend themselves a lot. So again, avoid those kind of debates when you're talking to them. So there are many others. Because of time, I'll just skip and tell us about one of the mistakes and one of the questions that has come out from parents, because a parent was sharing to me how she was very upset when she found out one of her daughters had been smoking bang. So sometimes, the reaction is usually to come out very angry and beat and, and shout and all that. But one of the things that I can actually tell you is you can use this acronym, CALM. So when you learn that your child is on drugs, please control your thoughts and your actions. I know that is hard, but do that, because the other mean of shouting and dealing with the situation when you're too upset, you might end up causing even more harm. So control your thoughts and action. Assess and decide whether you're too upset to continue. If you feel that you're too upset, of course, leave the situation until that time when you'll be a bit calm. But again, ensure that you deal with the situation within the 24 hours. So you can always read about the facts, other facts about drugs from our website. But again, as parents, one of the things that I would urge us is to ensure that please don't make alcohol available to your child or their friends. Because like we saw from the statistics, some of the children started drinking from home. So you find that in our homes, we still stock, in the fridges, alcohol. We still send our children. Sometimes when there are parties, alcohol is also made available. Even birthday parties, unfortunately. Again, discuss media messages. Children see a lot of advertisements. And by the way, advertisements does not target. It doesn't target, the older people. It actually targets the younger people. So discuss what they see and help them to be able to find context around, the messaging that is coming out. so that you can be able to catch early some of the myths and misconceptions that they might be having, so that you can be able to help them. Again, if there are any parties, supervise. Make sure that they know the rules are there on time, and alcohol is not encouraged. And then know where he or she will be. Is your child perhaps socializing with someone else or going for sleepovers? Again, you can always call the parents and verify whether they have actually gone to that particular location. There's a time we met with a friend whose daughter, had told the parents that they had gone somewhere, but they didn't go to that particular place. They actually ended up going to a different place. So sometimes calling with the recipient, the person who's going to receive, is very, very important. And then, of course, communicate your expectations and rules for when they go out with their friends. Make sure that you check in and find out. Just the other day, we saw, children who are, perhaps had gone raving, and through the drunk driving, they ended up, getting an accident and losing lives. So those things are common, but they happen when we don't monitor. And of course, try to be objective and open. Offer empathy and compassion. Let your child know that you understand that the teen years can be tough, And again, acknowledge the struggles and the times that they go through. But alcohol, again, is not usually useful. And to see that a human brain is usually fully mature at 25. So when they start experimenting with alcohol earlier, then the chances of them getting into addiction are very, very high. And of course, offer quality time with each child, like I said earlier. And then finally, let me just give you a few tips as we conclude, a few tips in terms of parental monitoring. So parental monitoring will help keep the children safe and keep them from risky behaviors, which includes, number one, the expectations that parents have for their children. So the expectations that you have for each of your child, the actions that you'll take to keep track of your child, and the ways to respond when the child actually breaks the rule. So how do you monitor as a busy parent? I'll give you about 6 tips, and that will be the end of the presentation. So number one, monitoring should start early and continue throughout the teenage years. You don't just monitor, and then when these people are teenagers or even they're in university, you stop monitoring. Because you'll find that, again, that is where the problem begins to occur. Like right now, children, children are some of them are still at home, the class 4, the grade 8s, the form 4s, and some of them are going to, next level of life. So please don't stop, because again, even when they are back at home while the other brothers and sisters are in school, please don't get to monitor, because some of them still bring their friends sometimes home for parties when you've actually gone to work. As children develop into teenage years, parents might view them as independent, but again, you should continue to be consistent, because initiation even in high school and university is even high now that they are out of your hands. Of course, it works best when parents have a good, open and caring relationships with their children. That is positive parenting, where you listen, you ask questions, you ask for their opinions, you offer support, and again, you praise them when they've done something good, and you continue staying involved in their life. Another monitoring tip is talk about your rules and the explanations, explain the consequences when the rules are broken, and please follow through. If rules are broken, please follow through and enforce the consequences fairly, but consistently. Of course, get to know who their friends are, get to know the parents of their friends, talk and listen often, listen often. That is being responsive. Listen how or she feels, what she's thinking, and then talk to your relatives, neighbors, and teachers, and adults who might be in your child's life, so that they can be able to also help you observe if there are any changes in their behavior, in their moods, in their friends. And again, pay attention to the changes in their mood and behavior at home and discuss any concerns that you might have. If you ignore it, maybe they'll get even deeper into substance abuse. And if you give pocket money, watch how they spend it. You can even also ask if they are visiting friends, find out if there'll be another adult who is present. Because unsupervised parties, sometimes that is where alcohol has been taken. That's where, I mean, even orgies have happened. So set those expectations of when they'll be able to also return home, and be aware of the dangers of sleepovers. Because in sleepovers, again, if there are no supervision, that is where drugs take place. And finally, because of time, I'll stop at keep track of how your child spends their time online. It is one of the biggest problems. Children are getting addicted to, phone, to the phone and the internet, and Instagram and Facebook and all that. And that is where they are also getting enticed, getting groomed for some, some are even getting into betting, some are getting into games that end up, causing a lot of challenges, and even initiation into drugs through online. So those are just basically the tips I wanted to share with us on positive parenting, ensuring that we communicate, we listen to them, we provide a structure like when to wake up, when to do chores. When you're talking to them, you can take advantage of the structures that are already there, like family meal times. You talk to them. You talk to them when you are having a walk, when you're having Bible study, when when you're doing chores together. Be close to your child, and you can be able to catch up a lot of problems earlier. When somebody entices them wrong, they can always share with you, and you can always help them. So ensure that you provide that kind of warmth, that kind of good communication, good monitoring, and being involved in your child's life. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Robert. I've known Robert for quite a number of years, and I know how passionate he is about the subject matter. Thank you for the presentation. Very, very good presentation. And I can attest that the presentation is, rather the participants are keenly following, and they like the presentation. So because of time, I don't think I will add much. I just want to invite questions and answer. We have quite a number of questions in the chat, the question and answer section, as well as in the chat box. But I would like to give the first priority to someone who is raising their hand, who is Nancy Ndongo. Nancy Ndongo, if you can unmute yourself and Nancy. So as we're waiting for Nancy Ndongo to unmute herself, we can go to the question and answer section. We have quite a number of questions. The first one is from John Maneno. He's asking, I am a resident I am a resident school counselor. What are your terms of you? Okay, I think he wants to invite people to talk about drugs in school. So he wants to know how he can go about it. So let me go to the next question so that it can be addressed at the same time. The same as John Maneno, whether we are planning to have trainings in Nakuru. There's another question. Then Henry Otuma is also asking, how can a parent who may not be technology savvy monitor a child who is using internet? So I think we will first answer those three questions, unless Nancy Ndongo is ready to add the third question, the fourth question. Okay, let's answer first the the 3 questions. Over to you, Robert, or the panelist.
Thank you very much, William. Thank you, John Maneno, for those very good questions. Indeed, we do a lot of sensitization in schools and talks about drugs. You can always be able to contact us, write to us, and we'll be able to respond appropriately. Because of the challenges sometimes of logistics and all that, sometimes we might ask for facilitation, but it's on a need basis, on need-to-need basis. If it's very near here, we can always make arrangement and come and talk to you for free. My screen is telling me my name is unstable. I hope I've been heard.
Yes,
and,
yes.
Whether we are planning to have, whether we are planning to have trainings in Nakuru, of course, one of our key mandates is public education and advocacy. And when we have those trainings, we'll be able to let you know. So we do trainings in 3 different ways. We have, the workplace-based training that is actually, the calendar usually comes out. For this financial year, I think we are not going to have any, but next financial year from July, a calendar will come out. There are those online trainings that are organized. Again, that is another format of training that will take place. So you can always keep in touch with us, and we'll be able to let you know when trainings are due. But you can also organize a training and invite us. We will be able to come, because we have, an army of, qualified facilitators to be able to take you through trainings. And Henry Atuma, how can a parent who may not be tech savvy monitor a child who's using internet? Of course, that is a bit challenging for us as parents nowadays. But like I said in the presentation, be a friend to your child. And of course, even seeking to know and to understand, you can always begin this conversation. Is like, hey, I see, you've been having communication on the internet. So who are your friends? What is happening? You can always learn from them. And through that, it can always, make you and the child become free with each other and, catch any challenge or problem early. But of course, those children who are young, then of course you need to monitor. You can even ask for a friend or, a relative who is tech savvy to be able to even put up controls on this gadget, so that at least the sites that your child accesses are the ones that are safe for that particular child. So I think that is how I'll answer it. But Susan Maua, who is in charge of training, I think is also typing her answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. And thank you, Nancy, for you also said that you have addressed your question in the chat box. You were unable to unmute. It's okay, we will read in the question and answer. There's a question by the chat box by Henry Atuma. How could we explain a situation where a child does not abuse drugs, even when parents are drug abusers? Then Nancy Ndungu is appreciating the presentation and very useful tips on which one will be able to follow. I think this is a comment. Thank you for the comment. Then you go down to a question by, okay. So there's a question that can the presenter break it down in just 2 minutes to make the presentation relevant? I think that was to families among all parents who enrich in Kenya. I think that's another question. All right, so I think those questions first. Then someone is asking whether we can send slides. I think that can also be addressed. So over to you, Robert, if there's any question to address or further addition as we go to the chat box again.
Thank you very, very much for those questions. I think the one I want to address first is somebody was asking on how do you explain a child who doesn't abuse drugs and the parents are abusing?
Yes.
Yeah, I think what I want to mention is the fact that, of course, you know, alcohol addiction or alcoholism is also genetic. Yeah? So when a great-grandfather, grandfather, and father, you know, are abusing drugs, the child becomes at risk and is more vulnerable to get into substance use themselves. But that only happens if they also, you know, get to experiment and take the drugs. But when they make the conscious decision not to take the alcohol, then it protects them from the same. You know, there are usually also environmental factors that come into play, either if there is abuse, you know, if there is, you know, a lot of availability of that alcohol in the home, if there is violence, all those sometimes can play into the trauma of the child and, you know, sometimes predispose them to risk. But again, you know, children who are resilient, children who perhaps, you know, have had, you know, good self-image, you know, children who, you know, have grown and perhaps have had a positive, you know, adult to look up to, sometimes can end up, you know, not getting into drugs if, you know, they know how to cope with stress, they know how to cope with their anger and, you know, anxiety, and, you know, they have good social skills. Then you find that that resiliency can actually protect them and help them to, you know, remain sober amidst, you know, a home. You know, it's usually also, you know, a personal will. Like some of us, you know, perhaps we had parents who, who are alcoholics, but, you know, you make a conscious decision because maybe the actions of the parent were repugnant, were things that you detested. So you can end up, you know, not getting into substance use. The other thing that somebody has asked about the presentation, I think we can always be able to share. Our contact, somebody has asked for our contact. You can reach us to via southrift@nacada.go.ke. And of course, we also have a toll-free line, 1192, that you can always call in if you have any problem or a challenge related to substance use. We have counselors who are there to be able to offer free counseling online. So those are some of the things that we have. And of course, we also, in our website, when you go to our website, you can get a lot of these materials on
Robert,
you know, booklets for parents guide, you know, some facts about drugs, you know. So when you interact again with those, sorry?
You are breaking at some point. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Oh yeah, I'm seeing my laptop is telling me my internet is not stable. So I don't know if you've heard me.
Maybe you can repeat the last bits on what is available on the website, the different materials.
Yeah, when you go to our website, we have a lot of material on, you know, parents guide. on perhaps how to talk to your children from the different age groups, the various myths and realities that are there. Even the presentation, this presentation that I've presented, most of the materials I've actually also been able to draw out from that booklet. So when you have that booklet, then you're good to go. But you can also reach us on 1192. It's a toll-free line. When you call with Safaricom and Orange, I believe, it's free of charge. You can always reach us from 8 a.m. to 24 hours. I've confirmed. During COVID, it had been up to 5, but right now it's back to 24 hours. You can reach us there. And if you want to reach us over email, we can reach us in southrift@nacada.go.ke. Again, when you go to our website, you'll find all our contacts because we have also various regional offices. So in case you have tuned in and you don't come from those counties earlier mentioned, you can always look at the regional office that is near to you and you can get help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, thank you for...
There's a raised hand from Thomas Kipto.
Okay, Thomas Kipto, you have the floor. Thomas Kipto, are you able to unmute and contribute?
Responding, so you may just continue.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much, Robert. Thank you all for attending.
I've seen there's another question.
Yes.
From Daniel Murugu.
Daniel Murugu.
He's asking,
yeah,
lifestyle audit, can lifestyle audit apply to children? Thank you so much, Daniel. I don't know if you mean the kind of lifestyle audit that is done to government officers, but I believe even for a child, you can always assess and be able to know what are some of their strengths, their weaknesses, and help and guide them when you're involved in their life. When you keep on communicating, you can always build your child's self-image and help them to cope with stress, resist alcohol, for example, their friends, who are their friends, those simple audits. When you have a good relationship with your child, you can always be able to do it, and help them both academically, socially, spiritually. Those are things that, as a parent, you know your child better and you can be able to do it. John Maneno, can I have recording of the PowerPoint presentation? Yes. When you please subscribe to our YouTube channel, all these presentations will also will be there. So you can always get the recording of the presentation on YouTube. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, yes, someone is, okay, so thank you very much, Robert. Thank you all participants for joining, all the panelists for also your contribution and joining this forum. I think the take-home message today is that not everyone is using drugs. It's only a smaller percentage who are loud enough and feel that everyone is using. So all is not lost. We can still prevent those who are using from progressing to addictive behaviors, and those who have not started to prevent them from starting, as well as put in structures or measures to ensure that we remain alcohol and drug free, especially for young people. So I think we had promised you to do this under 1 hour, and I will like to, if there's no any other burning question or addition, I'd like to invite Susan Maua. I had promised her to close the meeting for us. So unless there's any burning, someone is asking what is what's the account of your YouTube channel? I think if you can Google or YouTube, if you can write the NACADA Kenya, you will get all the YouTube and all the webinars which has been done before. So, but Susan can also clarify that as she is closing for us. So Susan, karibu.
Thank you so much, William, for taking us through, and Robert, thank you for the good job that you have done. Thank you, participants, for making it very interactive, your questions. And I would want to commend John Maneno and even Daniel Murugu. They have actually asked quite a bit of questions. And that means that there's a sign of interest. So there is a lot more that is coming up with regard to parents. As Robert had mentioned, it's a key area when it comes to prevention of drugs among children. And so it's very important that we continue this conversation. So this is something which is ongoing. You can follow us on our Twitter account, on Facebook, and also even our website. You'll be able to get a lot of information. I just shared the link on the question and answer where it was asked, so you can get materials for further engagement. And you can always call us on 1192, so that, especially if you need to speak to a counselor, so that is available. So I would want to appreciate all of you for finding time to attend this session. And also we would be having these kind of sessions again on 26th, let's say from the week of 14th, from next week through to 25th of June, because you know that 26th of June is the International Day against drug abuse and illicit trafficking. So it's also an opportunity to learn more. This year, it's talking about facts about drugs. And so it means that we'll also be sharing quite a bit on our social media platforms. And we will have a virtual commemoration on 26th of June. So watch the NACADA space and we'll be able to share more. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a blessed day and weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. God bless you.
Bye, everyone.